which also starts the recording.
Great.
And let's see if any attendees, sometimes our board colleagues like Michael, here we go, come in through the attendees, so we can promote him. Let's see.
My committee is going to be very thin tonight.
That's what I was seeing, yeah.
Thanks, by the way, for answering those questions.
Yeah, offline, we'll talk about that.
Oh, Keen, you're here. Wow.
Okay.
Well, Keen, you're frozen in a very flattering picture.
Hello, I thought I would join tonight.
Thank you. Hi, Michael. How are you? Nice to see you.
I'm good, getting ready for the weekend, and I thought I would just help you to fill up the room tonight. Also, I am interested in the subject. I think
Good.
it's very, very important to our community.
Great. Yeah, well, we love Greenwich House, and it's great that they are so willing to check in with us so that
Right.
we can. Hi, Emma Smith. Nice to see you as an attendee. Hey, Ryder. And Keen is here, which is great because she didn't think she was going to be able to be here. And Wayne, hey, Wayne. Let's see. Let's see if any of our guests are showing up. So Darren Block, can we elevate Darren Block? And now Emma Smith is a public member?
Nope, Emma Smith was appointed by the borough president, I guess, last Wednesday.
Congratulations, Emma. Yay.
And welcome
Thank
aboard.
you. So excited
Welcome
to be
aboard.
here. Good evening, everyone. Thank you.
In a moment, I'll introduce you to everybody so that, because I've met you already. And Darren is here. Darren, do you want to tell us if anyone else is joining from Greenwich House tonight?
I can just search by her then.
Yep, they're just looking for the link. They'll jump on in
Okay.
1 second, Susanna.
Yeah, sure. Take your time. Do you want me to resend anything to you?
I think we should be okay. Let me see.
Okay, if not, you know what? I gotta.
FUZZ AMA.
I'll send this to you in case this is helpful.
Is her last name Aaron?
My last name is Aaron, A-A-R-O-N.
Yes, Laura, I just resent it to you.
Right. Thank you.
She should be logging on in a moment.
Yep.
Good evening, everybody.
I want to thank you all. There we go. Who's that? Who just joined? Somebody just joined. Okay, so Laura Hoffman, she's part of your gang, right?
Laura Langner?
Oh, okay, no, I see a Laura Hoffman, Donna Raftery, hi Donna, and Arlene Gaeta are attendees. Oh, there you go, Laura Langner. So can you elevate Laura Langner to panelist? And then we'll start.
She'll have to accept the promotion, but yep, good. Okay, you're all set.
Okay, so it's 6:35. Welcome, everybody. This is the May meeting of the Human Services Committee for Community Board 2. I want to first, our agenda tonight is going to be a conversation with Greenwich House. Greenwich House is a very important social service provider for CB2. They have, in addition to having a pottery school and a music school and a nursery school, we like to talk to them primarily about their senior services. And they also do wellness that they'll talk about tonight as well. Before we introduce everyone from Greenwich House, I just want to introduce the committee. And first of all, I should introduce to our committee Emma Smith, who is a new member of Community Board 2, and we're thrilled to have her on our committee. Emma first approached us about becoming a public member, and we were thrilled to have her join. And then it turns out she had also applied to be an actual board member and got appointed. So yay, Emma. So we'll start with introductions. I'm Susanna Aaron, I'm the chair. Ryder.
Hi there, I'm Ryder Kessler. I am a member of CB2 and of the committee.
Keen. You're muted. You're muted, Keen, and looks like you're traveling. So if it's hard for you, I can just enter.
Here I am. I'm on the train, but I will be in my house soon. As you
Okay,
know, but
great.
I can hear you.
Great. Thank you for joining us. That's Keen Berger, who is on our committee. Wayne.
Oh, good evening, everybody. Hi, I'm Wayne Quadler. I'm a member of the committee.
Emma.
Good evening, everyone. I'm a new committee member and CB2 member. Great to be here, and thank you all for the welcome.
And we know that tonight we have some absences. Ritu Shatri can't make it, and neither can, oh my God, why am I spacing out?
Ivy.
Thank you, Ivy. And Keen wasn't supposed to be able to make it, but here she is. Wayne, did I introduce you as well?
Yes.
Okay, Wayne Cowadler. And from Community Board 2, we also have Michael Levine. Michael, would you like to say hello?
Yes, Michael Levine, member of Community Board 2, and delighted to be here tonight for the report from Greenwich House. Thank you for arranging it.
And we see that Donna Raftery is on as an attendee. Donna, if you wanted to be elevated, just let us know in the chat or just text Mark Diller. Oh, there you are. Okay. And now let's turn to Greenwich House. Darren, do you want to introduce yourself and your team?
Sure. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the board, Emma. I spent about 6 years on Manhattan Community Board 6, so you have both my sympathies and gratitude. This is some of the most important work in local community and civics, and it's and I say, all joking aside, that it really is valuable work. I appreciate the time all you guys give to this. So welcome to the board. Darren Block. I'm the executive director and CEO of Greenwich House. I've been in the position for a little over 3 years. Happy to get into more of the discussion, but I'll turn it over to my colleague Laura Langner for her introduction.
Thank you. Nice to meet everyone and good evening. I'm Laura Langner. I am the Chief Health and Human Service Officer. I oversee all of the clinics, the community outreach programs, the peers, as well as our older adult centers and our workforce center.
Great, thank you. And just a little bit of run of show tonight. It's a very small group tonight, both in terms of our committee and in terms of attendees. We will hear from Greenwich House, and then we will take some questions from our committee and open it up to attendees' questions as well. I tend not to follow the chat very much while we're doing this. So if anyone has anything to say, we like to use the chat if you have to share, a document or something like that. This is a small group of attendees. If attendees have questions, wait until we call on you, because as I say, I won't monitor the chat. So let's hear from Greenwich House. What are you guys up to?
Yeah, sure.
Wait, I just want to do a preamble, which is
Please come.
not long ago, you guys did the city revised its request for proposals on senior centers, and broadened, it created more flexibility in the model of providing services for seniors under contract with the city. And I know that you guys went through some model changes as a result. So bring us up to date on that, just as a starter.
Sure.
Yeah, and I'd say that's the tip of the iceberg of the changes that we've been undergoing, Susanna. So I think, to your point, I think the The older adult services have definitely undergone a lot of changes, both in terms of physically where we're doing those services and some of the services and approaches that we're doing across our different sites. Beyond that, just to feather out the discussion, we also have a methadone treatment program at the southern sort of part of this district on Mercer, just off of Houston, and expanding Community and Resiliency Center mental health clinic, which is our mental health clinic at 27 Barrow, and of course, to points raised, our nursery school at Barrow Street Nursery, our after school program, which is our youth community center, also at 27 Barrow Street, and our music school on 46 Barrow, and our pottery program on 16 Jones. The big, I'd say the big activities from this last year for us, and we were thrilled to be able to join the community on this, was celebrating our 120th year of service to the West Village, Chelsea, the West Village, and really all of New York City. That gave us an opportunity to, I think, both highlight our legacy in the community, our connections to the community, and really the kind of cooperative that Greenwich House has built and managed with the West Village and broader community. It gave us an opportunity to both highlight some of our work and also kind of thank the community for its longstanding support of Greenwich House. But at the end of the day, as much as we love our youth, arts, and enrichment programs, I think the heart and soul of Greenwich House tends to be the health and human services that we provide, and our mission to really explore and better understand the evolving needs of this community, the evolving human and social needs of this community, and figuring out where Greenwich House can be a resource and a support to address some of those needs. I'll hand it off to Laura to talk a little bit about the specifics of some of what's happening, but I will just take one final point to say, Susanna, to the point you raised about the rethinking of our older adult services, I'd say the most interesting and I think one of the pieces of our recent expansions that I'm most proud of is part of that older adult services contract gave us space to rethink what we were doing, how we were doing, where we were doing services for older adults. And we took that opportunity to rethink one of our spaces, which had been a traditional space at 27 Barrow, the Judith C. White Center for the last several decades. And we rethought that space, looking at what was and wasn't really readily available in our community. And one of the things we saw that we thought we could add to the fabric of the social services in the area was something really focused on workforce training, workforce development, and helping neighbors and New Yorkers more largely think about what their workforce needs are, and how to help connect workers and employers, build skills, help employers retain our workforce. And really the most interesting thing I think about what we're doing at our lifelong skills and opportunity center is a focus that almost no other center in the city is doing, which is a focus on what it looks like for aging adults, mature adults, older adults, to help them prepare and stay in the workforce. There's an unfortunate reality around ageism and around many New Yorkers also needing to work longer. And for us, the ability to hone a set of services and skills and focus to help older adults meet those needs is was a need we really wanted to address.
So wait, just to step back a little bit, one of the things that came out of the city's new approach to senior centers is that you're allowed now to use all your different locations as part of a satellite network, right? So that you can divide various services among the centers as opposed to replicating the same services in each center, right? And as a result of that, you've decided to make the Judith C. White Center, which was a traditional senior service center, senior center, into this, what is the name of it that you called it?
Lifelong Skills and Opportunity Center.
Lifelong Skills and Opportunity Center. And are you guys focusing on older adults for this, or is this open to all ages?
So we have funding through DFTA to have a focus on older adults, as well as we have existing vocational services through our behavioral health that we share the space with, because it's 5,000 square feet of brand new, beautiful space. But the primary focus of that center is older adults.
And DFTA, just so everybody knows, is the Department for the Aging.
Department for the Aging, sorry.
It's an acronym that I know, but maybe not everybody does. And I think that also, as a result of this, have you also specialized some of your other centers? Like Westbeth came on as a sort of a relatively new center for you guys, right?
It did. So Westbeth came on with a real focus on social services. We had worked with the Westbeth management company for actually a few years before that. We actually have a case manager on site through a HUD grant. We have a satellite mental health clinic located there as well. And it was clear that the residents had significant social service needs. So we have a social worker case manager there. We bring in legal services. We bring in a bunch of other things. All of our centers have computer labs. All of our centers provide congregate meals. But yes, Susan, you're right. We went ahead, and Our Lady of Pompeii had a real interest in health and wellness. We do a lot of our yoga, nutrition, and other classes there. The Independence Plaza is a very traditional older adult center and has seen almost a 200% growth in the last year and a half. And then Center on the Square has always had a strong arts and culture focus, and that continues to be the case. Doesn't mean we don't occasionally have a yoga class, but the focus there is really around arts and culture.
And how has your membership changed over the last couple of years? You mentioned that Independence, which is right outside of our district. Has the overall membership changed a lot over the last couple of years?
So it's really been interesting. I think one of the things we all underestimated was how long it would take for the older adults to feel comfortable coming back to the centers. We've been tracking the numbers. We're now seeing since March of this year that we are surpassing the numbers from 2019 if we compare month to month. So the older adults are certainly back. The dining rooms are full. The classes are more well attended, but we are seeing a different population. Some of our members that were always there have come back, but we're seeing a population of older adults that have a much greater need for case assistance and social services.
Are they going to Westbeth?
They're going to all of our centers. Where Westbeth is an interesting community because it's located within a campus of residences. And so we see most of our members coming from that residence, or we even have some come over from West Village houses. But Our Lady of Pompeii and Center on the Square are seeing more community members come that have higher needs. Independence Plaza is also located within a residential facility, so we see a lot of people coming from that residential community.
I think one of the things, Susanna, that you and some of the committee members might recall is the way you introduced the rethinking of our older adult centers was as a network. And the way DFTA, the way the city presented the idea, the concept was to create something of a network. And the most profound thing that they floated as a possibility was that there would be a way to tie this network of sites together, this transportation component that they referenced and that they alluded to, they threatened to even possibly fund, and that we requested. And that one of the things is as introducing Greenwich House's set of senior services was in a network model, with the idea that there would be some ability, some availability to float more freely from site to site. Unfortunately, it was one of the only, on the fortunate side, it was one of the only components that wasn't funded and that wasn't supported. The unfortunate side is it was such a key component for this idea that we had about how to help older adults move around from site to site, how we might be able to specialize each site. And the last thing I'll just say on the point is when we talk about transportation needs for adults and aging adults, older adults, frequently people look at our district and say, versus other districts, and say, well, we're transportation rich. We've got buses, we've got subways all around, but The reality is, I know I don't need to tell this committee, but if you're an aging or older adult, the fact that a subway might be across the street from your house does not make that an easy way to get around town. The fact that a bus stop might be down the street does not make that an easy way to get from this site to that. And so what I think Laura and I and others on the team have been doing, and others around the city, have been really trying to press DIFTA to rethink what it means when we talk about transportation deserts and transportation challenges, and how they might think about funding us to help our members get from site to site.
I think we've seen some people, when JCW became a workforce center and non-traditional, I know that you're aware that there were some people that were really concerned about that, but we have seen that population really migrate to Westbeth by and large, and we're getting lots of great feedback about how they're liking the programming and the staff there. And I think to a small degree, certainly not the degree that I think the city hoped, remote services, classes that are available remotely, have seen some interest by those older adults that had both the technology available to them as well as the internet service and the skill. I think the workforce center is increasing that at our other centers. So this is where that network concept comes. We know that some individuals really struggle with getting on the internet and participating. So we have staff there that are available for a brand new computer lab that anybody can drop in hours, and they can learn how to set up a Facebook account, how to stay in touch with your family, how to join a class through Zoom, how to do all of these things. But you still have to have the technology in your home. So I think it's helped some individuals, but transportation really is. If you have mobility issues, the subway and the train don't help.
I just want to say that anyone, again, it's a small meeting, so anyone who'd like to talk, just raise your hand. There's no, this doesn't have to be a tightly moderated conversation. I'll just keep going with my own questions then, which is, for one thing, like, how much would the transportation element cost if you got it?
We had estimated a pilot for about 160,000, I want to say 170,000, which we were, again, what we were piloting was the idea of what would it look like. I think the proposal we had was 2 or 3 vans that would be, we were working with a partner. It wasn't Uber.
It wasn't Uber, it was something like that, Lyft or something.
Yeah. And the, it's funny because I know this isn't the CB2 Transportation Committee, but I really struggle with not wanting to put more cars back on the street and cars and vans and trucks and buses. So I kind of struggled intellectually and emotionally with the idea, but I think what we came up with as the possibility was either an on-demand, a set loop and network, but something that was on demand. So it wasn't just, vans kind of driving aimlessly, but being available to go to a site, to then pick someone up and then bring them to the next site. And which is, and to me that again, I want to say, I think it was 150 to 170 was the proposal.
Yeah, I think it was like 160.
I think would have been a very useful, novel exploration of what it would look like to help older adults get around from site to site. I'll also just note that what we included in the proposal wasn't just that the 5 Greenwich House older adult sites would be the only nodes. We had also identified several other community resources, libraries, hospital, other places that might be kind of high use, high need spots for our members.
I see Michael Levine has a question. Michael?
Yes, thank you. My question relates to the transportation issues you're raising. I am retired, not working. I have very poor vision. One of my transportation issues is getting to and from community board meetings now that we're going live again. And the requirement for our members is to be live and in person to maintain a quorum. Have you thought about any way of working with this community board and other such organizations just to help certain members of our community board who may have low vision as I do to get to and from things like community board meetings? I agree with you. I don't want to put more Ubers on the street, but sometimes that's my only option. Have you thought about that as a possibility for current or future programming?
Yeah, Michael, I think, oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think that we continue to identify the transportation needs for the population overall, not just relative to Darren's point. It wasn't just to take people from center to center, but to also look at high impact needs for our older adults. Go ahead, Darren.
I was going to say, Michael, I think the simplest answer to the question is no, but. And so the answer is we had not, and I still don't see us as dipping into the transportation sphere and space, but point taken, but, and this is the but, to your exact points, we saw a profound need around older adults and those with any kind of mobility issues around the city. And so what we tried to do in understanding that as a need was how do we piggyback it on top of something else we're doing? So.
Right, that makes sense.
All right, thank you.
You know, Darren, before you joined Greenwich House, I know that Greenwich House was going through some difficult time in terms of shrinking membership, or I don't know if it was shrinking, but if they were struggling with broadening the membership. And I know that part of your strategic goals have been to broaden the definition of senior centers so that you can bring more people in. I'm just wondering if that's still part of your strategic goal and how it's going.
Yeah, and I think that, the word I would use, and I think you kind of swimming around it, was, I think there was a stagnation. I think there was a sense that there was neither growth nor necessarily a receding. And yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that it's hard not to spot is we are an aging city. If we're going to focus on, let's say, older adults, we're an aging city, and a city with needs that are only increasing. So the challenges around the human condition are not getting any easier. And so to me, an organization that is literally mission oriented and tasked with how are we helping identify and address those, we should be in a constant kind of posture of bringing more New Yorkers help, services, supports, counseling, enrichment that are going to help them through those challenges. So for me, the model was really trying to be and continuing to explore why more neighbors weren't coming in through different Greenwich House doors. And the term that I use, I don't know if folks were at my first CB2 discussion or not, or if there's no reason you remember this, but the question I frequently asked then to our different program directors, and I continue to ask it now, is are we not seeing more participation because people aren't buying what we're selling or just don't know about what we're selling? And so to me, that's a little bit of a flip way to say, right, do we need to keep changing and modulating the stuff and things we're doing, or is it a matter of promotion and information sharing and making people aware of what we're doing, how to connect with what we're doing, how to lower stigmas and barriers to come in to see what we're doing, and that I think is a daily, weekly, monthly question and struggle for not just Greenwich House, but any, I think, social service organization. Because if you think about the thousands and thousands and thousands, the tens of thousands of older adults in our general catchment area, if we think about that from 14th Street, 23rd Street or so south to, let's say, Canal-ish, and we have a membership of around 2,000 or so registered older adults. There's a little bit of a question of, are more older adults not coming in because they don't feel like there's anything there for them, or are there other kind of barriers? So yeah, we're constantly asking that question.
Yeah, because it's a question. My dad's 97. He's never gone to Greenwich House. He goes to the New York Philharmonic. He doesn't want to go to a senior center. And I always think of this community, the older adults in this community come from those who've been around for a long time. This was a bohemian neighborhood. It was an alternative neighborhood. It was a very arts and culture and politics centered, intelligent neighborhood, people who all moved away from their homes to live in the village. So that question of what is enriching to them is an interesting question. And it makes sense that you guys are always thinking
Yeah,
about.
I'll also just spot one other thing, and Ryder, I see a hand up, so I don't want to
Yeah.
jump on to your question and take any more time on it. But I will say, because this is something I've talked to you about, Suzanne, I've talked to Wayne about, I've talked to Ryder about, and it comes down to another interesting little tension that's at work here, which is there's limited time, limited resources, limited funding to provide really a truly unlimited amount of supports and needs that are out there. And you just touched on a range of 2 or 3 different approaches that a nonprofit, a community group can take. We could focus on a certain, set of enrichment and enriching services, and that might get more of some group of older adults who right now aren't feeling like there's anything there of need or value of utility. We could, in the alternative, focus much more heavily or exclusively around nutrition, food, health, and mental health needs, to the exclusion of some of our enrichment, and that would also speak maybe to a group of older adults and needs there. For us, I think we're trying to find a lane that understands. To your point, we have a very dynamic, a very eclectic community. And we're not alone in that. I think older adults and New Yorkers in general have a range of needs. And I think we're not trying to, boil the ocean here, but I think we are trying to create spaces that are open, inviting, welcoming, with pieces that support all sorts of different needs that our neighbors have.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And also, I mean, you're trying to provide something that they can't get somewhere else.
Presumably, right. Yeah. And by the way, that's point. We have the Met, we have libraries, we have great museums, we have great parks, and so it's, I'm not saying like, let's just stay in our lane, but it is something we're mindful of.
Ryder?
Thanks. And my question is related to this conversation, so I was happy to hear it go on. I think the other side of the coin of, how to attract more folks, and whether it's an issue of marketing or what the services are, et cetera, is my question is about the people who have come. I think Laura mentioned that, numbers are above 2019 levels, and some of it is people who had been in the mix then, but a lot of it is new people, specifically with, case assistance and social service needs. So I'm interested in that population specifically. Is it like, where did those folks come from? Was that just, they were always there, but they didn't know that these resources were available? Are they native to this district? Or did they hear about, the Great Greenwich House opportunities and have come from elsewhere? And is it people who were already in need of those services probably before the pandemic? Or is it people who have been, made to be housing insecure, or had networks of mental health care and employment interrupted by the pandemic? And also, so related to that question is just kind of like, when a new person comes in, do they get how did you hear about us? Is there data about how they heard about you, or is it anecdata, or a combination? So hope that's legible as a question.
So the answer to all of that is yes. We have some data. We do assessments, we do referral information. We ask a ton of questions when people come in as part of that process. Some people choose not to answer. My anecdotal answer to you would be, these are individuals who have had long-term social service needs that were making it going into COVID, and COVID has just tipped it so that they're not making it. Almost everyone is relatively close to the neighborhood, to the older adult center they're going to, particularly in that population. They're not traveling far distances. There's certainly enough older adult centers throughout the city that, they're not coming from Queens, they're not coming from the Lower East Side. Most of the individuals are coming from the area in which they live. We're actually seeing some of the homeless population that we have been dealing with in the past in the park, actually fully cognizant, coming in, recognizing they need food. They're coming in asking for case assistance to find housing, to find a place to shower, to get social service, which I think is very encouraging, because we're able to help people get out of the park and hopefully start to get some of those services. data is showing that they were not coming to us beforehand. And for some, they held jobs that they lost and they were minimum wage jobs and they were not going back to them. For others, they have aged into retirement over the course of the 3 years of COVID. And then, you know, quite frankly, for others, there's just a desire to come in, sign up, get meals every day, take a few classes, and they really don't want to go through all of the assessments and the questions. It's a real bag. It's a real mix.
Thanks. That's helpful. I'll just to editorialize for a second on that. Like, you know, my parents are in their mid-70s. They lived in the neighborhood for 45 years. You know, my mom's going to the theater every day. My dad's going to the driving range. I don't feel like I need them to know that they can come for a yoga class. I mean, it would be nice if they came for yoga class, but it is really encouraging to hear that folks who are like in and around the park, who maybe are in need of somewhere to go during the day, of people who might have more need.
Well, but Ryder, I don't want to misrepresent. We also have a core group of people that go to the Whitney Museum every month and sit there, and they watch a movie and they have these really wonderful discussions about the importance of different styles of acting, and then they relate that. We have a choral group that performs. We have a comedy group that performs. I think the thing that is unusual to older adult centers and that remains true at all of our Greenwich House centers is we have a mixed population. We have a whole, in the same way that the community we live in is very diverse, so are the individuals that come to our centers. They are very representative of the community at large.
Totally. I guess my point is just about like marginal resource allocation for getting an incremental member of the community in, what parts of the community to focus on attracting. Anyway, that's really helpful. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Keen?
Yeah, well, I happened to be listening today to a podcast with Jane Fonda, who turns out to be in her 80s. Who knew? And is very concerned about climate change and doing stuff. And I'm wondering if you have, you know, and I think about what Susanna said about the people who live around there. They're all political activists. Do you do stuff with them too, or how does that? What about them?
Ironic you ask us that today. Do you want to expand on that, Darren?
No, please.
So yes, we try to engage our members in those political actions that we take. The current leadership or mayor's office, city and state budget did not put in for a cost of living raise, and are also talking about contract cuts for older adult centers and human service workers overall. And so today we actually had a rally for just pay. We've had prior rallies for just pay. And I will say of all of our programs, the older adult centers are really where we not only have staff participate, we have our members coming out and participating and raising signs and being politically active and speaking up about what it takes, not only to make sure the people that provide them services are able to be there and have this job and still do this, but also they advocate for themselves and what they need and what they consider to be, you know, a reasonable expectation of what their retirement should look like.
What I was going to say, Keen,
Yeah.
is yes, and everything Laura just outlined, but I just dropped into the chat a updated mission and vision statement that our board spent a bit of time on this past year. And Keen, one of the aspects that I took a lot of pride in landing on and around was the idea of how could Greenwich House act as a hub of civic activity. And I think your point about whether that's environmental issues, Laura's point about pay equity, gender equity, and you know, or other issues around social justice, which I probably, you know, I've sent out a number of missives towards our community of 13, 15, 17,000 on our email list about how I feel like we have a responsibility at Greenwich House to try to be a catalyst for some of these things. But your point is, I would actually tell you, I don't think we do enough of those types of activities. I don't think we do enough of creating space where older adults, mature adults, it's, by the way, we have to figure out a different, better language for how to talk about all of us as we mature and get older. But
I'd say hot
What?
moment. I don't know.
yeah, it's but Keen, the interesting thing, the thrust of the point I wanted to bring up about a hub of civic activity is I am far from the first or only person talking about this. Has actually been a growing observation in our society that over the last 10, 20, 30 years, part of the breakdowns we're seeing in, different societal breakdowns and challenges are what groups, what forums bring people together with diverse thoughts. By the way, my little tongue-in-cheek comment to Emma, a community board is the ultimate place where you have a diversity of thoughts and ideas, even in a place that, folks think might be, have some type of political or global orientation, like our neighborhoods here in the West Village and Chelsea and the like. The idea of how can Greenwich House play a role in bringing people together around local issues and global issues, to me, is a powerful idea. And so it's an area where I don't think we've done enough of in recent years. But if you look at our history, that is the history of Greenwich House. And I take a lot of pride in now being a part of it, and a lot of responsibility, and feeling like we have to do more better on some of those areas.
I wanted to pivot a little bit to your wellness center, because that's a piece of news, and I don't know anything about it. So I just wonder if you can tell us about that.
So we used to have 2 small mental health clinics, Children's Safety Project, as well as the Senior Health and Consultation Center. And between the 2 of them, they served probably about 90 individuals. We merged those 2 clinics during COVID, and we refocused our energy on what it is we do best. And that is providing mental health services that are trauma informed, culturally confident, with a real focus on all of the marginalized communities. So as we did that, what happened is we now have a census of almost 365 and a 65-person waiting list. The center is continuing to grow and really booming. It is becoming the gold standard for trauma-informed care for individuals aged 3 to 100 plus. We have increased our geriatric mental health services there. We've brought in medication services so that we can actually provide psychotropic. We have nurse practitioners, psychiatrists, and a really diverse, we currently have 5 languages spoken there. We have representation from LGBTQ as well as Native speakers. Really proud of the work that they've been doing. The methadone clinic is in the Mercer building. As Darren said earlier, we are going to be moving our Center for Resiliency and Wellness onto a different floor in that building because we have outgrown our space. I think the really wonderful news is we were just awarded a geriatric mental health grant to open 11 new satellite clinics specifically for older adults, and they will be clinics embedded in older adult centers. So if you come there for lunch, if you come there for activities, you can also receive your mental health services there. And the Department for the Aging will notify us which older adult centers we will be going into. So we'll be spending the first part of probably July, new fiscal year, or the end of the calendar year, really getting all of those clinics licensed and staffed and working. I think the other thing that's been very significant is we are working with the Family Justice Center of Manhattan, which focuses on individuals who have experienced partner or gender-based violence. And there's this assumption that it's almost all children and young adults, but there really is a geriatric component to that, where individuals have either recently entered into violent relationships or they have had decades of violent relationships and have finally come to a point where they're willing to advocate, able to advocate for themselves. And so we are actually embedded in the Manhattan Family Justice Center 1 day a week, and then we admit those individuals. And so really phenomenal growth, amazing work done by amazing individuals who are so skilled in meeting people where they are and providing trauma-informed, culturally competent services, that we're very excited about the growth that we're going through.
So all of this is new to me, starting with where is this place? What is
So
this?
currently,
Wait, before you start, but where is it? Is this a completely new program? Who do you contract with? Like, what is this?
yeah, so this is not.
Oh,
a
Susanna,
complete
I don't think
program.
it's as new to you as you think once Laura builds it up. These are
Oh, really?
components that over the last couple of years, you've definitely heard bits and pieces of, though how we might be framing it and presenting it might be new to you and the committee.
This is the Center for Resiliency and Wellness, is our mental health clinic that has existed for decades
Where
in 27 Barrow.
Oh, okay.
27 Barrow. We will be moving it to 190 Mercer, which is Mercer and Houston. Quick hop across the park. And we're doing that explicitly because we are bursting at the seams and we have no ability to take any more people into the clinic. So this has been our mental health clinic for decades. It actually was founded as part of a response to the HIV crisis and the HIV/AIDS in the geriatric population. And so it was, I believe, early 80s, right, Darren? Early 80s, late 70s,
Yeah.
I think.
So you have a client list of, you have 365 people coming to that
We have
clinic?
365 patients registered at that clinic, and we have another 56 on a waiting list.
I see. So when you say that you're bursting at the seams, are you really referring to that waiting list?
Well, we have a number of people that are only able to get telehealth services that really need to be seen in person, but we have no physical space to see them at. So it is both the waiting list as well as the actual census itself.
Got it. So you're taking on a different floor on Mercer Street?
Yes, we are. We're actually going to become the sole tenant at Mercer Street. Kaplan used to be there on 2 floors. They have vacated. And there is also a cellar space that used to be a, what do you call it? Not a murder mystery, a mystery.
Escape room?
Yeah, escape room. Thank you. And that's also vacant. And so what we're doing is we are moving the clinic to the 2nd floor. The 3rd floor will see our executive staff, Darren, myself, and administration move on to the 3rd floor. Our methadone program, which is already on floors 4 and 5, is going to increase its primary care services. It has license to provide primary care. We're seeing an increased need to provide primary care to individuals with substance use disorder because primary care physicians do not want to treat individuals with substance use disorder. So we're going to add a couple of extra treatment rooms to our primary care component. And then in the cellar, we are really setting up just kind of office drop-in space for all of these programs that work out in the community. So that geriatric mental health grant, I still need a place for those people to come back and write their notes. The SERPAs, and Suzanne, I think you're familiar with them when we were doing the Kaysen grant and doing the work at Washington Square Park. Those peers who are going to the park and who are still going to the park and helping interact with the homeless and mentally ill population in the park and trying to get them into services, they need a place to sit and write notes and come back and meet. So the cellar space is going to kind of be where staff, there'll be no patients there, but it'll be where staff can come grab a computer before they go back out into the field.
And where is the money for all of this coming from?
So we were
new contracts or these grants or these donors?
It's a combination of things. It is some contracts and grants, like for the geriatric mental health and whatever, but we bill for healthcare insurance billing. And we have increased our ability for collections by really spending the time to understand how to do it better, smarter. And we are doing really well in the collection of our billing, in addition to support by our government partners and a couple of new grants awarded to us.
Are you in Article 26 or 28? I've heard this from
We have 3 different articles. So the mental health clinic is called an Article 31. That is what is currently at Barrow Street and is moving to Mercer. Our substance use methadone clinic is an Article 32, and it will remain where it is. We also have an Article 28, which is what allows us to do primary care. And that is also already located at the Mercer on floors 4 and 5, but we're going to get them a few more treatment rooms because we're seeing a need. I mean, our goal would be to expand primary care to actually be able to provide women's health.
I just want to say, if anyone has questions, including attendees or panelists, please just raise your hands. We're just going to keep this conversation going. There aren't that many people here, so it's pretty easy to have an easy flowing conversation. One question I wanted to ask you guys, one of the reasons that we like to meet with you every year, obviously we like to know what you're doing, but as you know, one of the jobs of the community board is every year to signal to the city both a narrative of the profile of our district and also to make funding requests. So one of the questions we would have for you is, do you guys have any capital needs that you would like, us to advocate for, any capital needs or expense needs that we should be including in our priority budget requests?
Yeah, we're thanks for the question, Susanna. And you and the community board, I think, have always, at least in the 3 years I've been here, been very supportive of dropping in submissions when we've needed and had.
Yeah, a lot of it it's done you, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's to Laura's point about our advocacy today. Nothing, nothing is easy and nothing happens without advocacy. So it's got to start there. So I'll say 2 things. There are, on the expense side, to the points of the big move that Laura just mentioned, there's, we have figured out how the business model of expanding mental health services can work. So, and by we, let me be very clear, we is Laura, not me, not the rest of us. So God bless Laura for that. What is rarely baked into organizational and programmatic funds are some of the ancillary costs to that. So we have to move into a new space. Those moving costs and some of those sort of soft costs involved in that aren't baked into any of our budgets. So, that's, if you've, as anyone knows, like it's not, these are not 7-figure sums. These are not even high 6-figure sums, but these are, modest 5-figure sums of money that would be useful to help support that move. And for a nonprofit that is I think heading in the right direction, but still does not have an endowment. We do not have a big reserve, anything like that. Help with those types of items are useful. The other thing we talked earlier, and to Michael's point and the points made, we had a vision for what some kind of transportation network could be. And I promised our members that is not an idea that we're going to give up easily on, mainly because to points we've heard from them and again to points that Michael and others have raised, that is a need, that it's a real need. And while I don't see us getting into the transportation business, adding a transportation element to help members at least get around to our sites and other key sites, I think would be useful. Now, like, just to be clear about what that means, that is, I don't ever see that, because we're not transportation oriented. That is never going to be what the city and others provide in terms of transportation on demand. That's not going to pick somebody up at their home per se, but
an internal service. benefits.
Yeah, exactly. Can we figure out, if the way I look at this, if organizations like Columbia and NYU and others can create it, and and some of our hospital systems and others can create, some kind of network that
Shuttle service.
braids together different sites. I feel like something like that is actually community asset oriented is a really interesting idea. And for in any neighborhood, and I think we're an amazing neighborhood to test this out because of our density and the fact that I think tying spaces together could be fascinating. I think it's a really neat way. Our bus lines tend to go kind of north and south. Our subway lines tend to go north and south. Anyone trying to go east-west, this is, a perpetual challenge in Manhattan. Figuring out which way is east and west is a perpetual challenge for Laura Langner, which we joke about all the time as we try to get around the West Village. But my point only is that I think, creating that a kind of a necklace of in a transportation loop, I think would be just an amazing partnership between the community board, this committee, maybe some other committees on the board, and what Greenwich House could try to map out.
So
By the way, I mean, you have Wayne and some other, big shops in the community. Is that a public-private partnership? Is that something that is a mix of something that we can get from city government and someplace like an NYU or some of our healthcare providers or something like that? Money's always hard for everyone. I'm always willing to be, sort of entrepreneurial with it.
So a challenging question. I mean, you budget that around $150,000, $180,000. You guys have a total membership of about 2,000 people. I mean, so that ends up being like $90,000, $90 a year a person. I mean, it's not that cheap. It's
For a year of being able to move somebody.
well, but I mean, okay. But I'm gonna guess that not all 2,000 of your members.
No, of course. I'm also guessing that for sure not all 2,000 members are going to take advantage of it. I'd also ask how many others are going to, because that aren't our members. That does not need to be limited to our members by any stretch. It's just simply our membership is a backbone set of users.
It'll be an interesting pilot.
Yeah. And that's why you pilot it, because I think to the point Ryder and I have talked about, and he mentioned earlier, like I'd love to analyze the data on who would turn out for something like that and who wouldn't. And then, listen, the point of pilots is you figure out what works and what doesn't. You keep tweaking and keep adjusting, but I don't think anybody can argue the need. And so figuring out how to build that in a thoughtful way, I think is a worthy endeavor.
I mean, there really is no easy way to get from Independence Plaza to West Bath or Independence Plaza, like it's a loop, right? So, and if you talk, the average person coming in for a meal, Susanna, is showing up 5 days a week and is showing up short of an ice storm or, the power outage, they're coming for food every day. And so, you say 5 days a week times 51 weeks a year, and you divide that by the $90, it's less than a Metro card.
Question about food. Years ago, you guys were going to move out of the Judith C. White Center. You were going to co-locate some of your programs, and everyone went nuts at the prospect of missing out on meals at the Judith C. White Center. So now you are not providing home cooked meals there, right? I mean, how's that going?
So workforce does not provide a congregate meal. It doesn't have the setting. They're teaching classes, things like that. I think the real question was people wanted meals that were cooked by staff that they knew, that they felt that they had a relationship with. The meals, ironically, were the exact same meals that the caterer was cooking, because literally our recipes come from DFTA. They are required. We follow them. Yes, we have to post them. They go online. DFTA tells us what products we can use, what the recipe has to contain, and all of it. So our caterers have to follow that. We actually have to go every single month unannounced and make sure that they're following that. Wow. And we test the meals, and that was what the kitchen also follows. I think we have this commercial kitchen available to us, and we are being thoughtful about what does that look like. Could the commercial kitchen become where we are the caterer for all of our centers? or possibly a caterer for our centers and other centers.
Wait, where is the commercial kitchen?
It is in Judith C. White, which was why they were able to cook the meals themselves.
Got it.
We're not there yet. It's what would be interesting is if we could do something like that and tie it to workforce for the older adults who want to be able to also do jobs in that area. It is a conversation right now. It is
Another capital need.
I was getting there. It's a conversation right now that would require funding and assistance from partners, just like the community board.
To do what? Wait, to do what specifically? To revamp?
Update and upgrade the kitchen. So while we preserve the kitchen and while it was certainly functional for the
center
60 to 80 to 100 or so meals, I think what we would love to do is figure out ways to, as Laura was saying, like lots of different new uses for it. But the interesting misnomer about that kind of the quote unquote home cooked meal is that people like the cook that was there, but
Right.
yes.
So wait, I'm really, all I wanted to know was, did you get pushback from it? Because people were very hot and bothered about it.
We got,
but what's funny, I'm sorry, can I just say, so what's funny is I think there was enormous investment in the people that worked in the kitchen. And when they saw that those people came with us and stayed with us, and that those people went to West Beth and they went to other centers, we have seen the members go there and be happy and continue to go there. We have not, there was certainly pushback, but of all the people pushing back, they are all currently members of other centers. And what's interesting is we now have 2 caterers. And so they may not have the same meal. We advertise that, people pick which lunch they want. At West Beth, we now offer lunch on Saturdays. We figured out that salmon is the favorite. Everybody shows up for salmon. So every Saturday is salmon and they're packed. And so people, when we had the old model, we didn't offer food on weekends. Here by opening West Beth and bringing in a different caterer, we're now able to offer food 6 days a week instead of just 5 days a week.
Great. And I guess along the lines of member pushback, are there any, you guys have a community advisory board, right?
Every single center has its own advisory board. And then we also have a joint advisory board where they all come together.
I guess my question is, are there any hot topics going on those? Is there anything that we should know about? Are the areas of
I think we can report back to you on that. The community boards kind of fizzled a little during COVID, but they just had elections in late February and they were installed in March, and people are having their first meetings April and May. Right. So I will be happy to get back to you on that.
Does anybody have any other questions? Oh dear, the screen just went completely. Yes, someone, Carter. Oh, here, let me let you talk.
Emma has a question.
Oh, sorry, Emma. Go ahead, Emma, and then Carter.
Carter may have gone first. Sorry if I cut you, Carter. Okay, thanks, team. I have a couple of quick questions that just sort of came up out of the context of folks who would be using the service being non-members. Can you talk about like folks that engage with you that are not technically members, and is there a specific divide in what's available to folks? And excuse my ignorance for not picking that up earlier.
There isn't a divide, but we only, under DIFTA guidelines, you can only participate as a non-member for 3 instances, and then you have to.
Perfect.
But let me be clear. But Emma, let me just be clear about like what it means to become a member. That's like filling out paperwork to say I'm a member of that.
That was
like,
my understanding.
There's not a handshake. There's not a
That's
fee.
what I was
There's
gathering,
not
but I'm
a
like, right.
initiation. No,
Okay.
it
Sounds
is very
good.
Just a secret handshake.
Okay, yeah. And then a follow-up question would be, you say, some folks are coming to meals every single day. For folks who are members, I'm sure there are varying levels of engagement popping by for an event or a discussion versus this. Is there any way to, I guess, quantify an average engagement? Like how often generally are folks stopping by? Again, understanding huge variance in needs and what folks
We
are
actually have to enter attendance for every activity as well as every meal daily into DIFTA. I don't have that off of the top of my head.
That's
but
totally
it's certainly
fine.
something we could provide.
Yeah, just curious. Really cool. Thank you.
Anything else, Emma? Oh,
No,
was
that's
that
all I got. Thank you.
Carter?
Yeah, thanks very much for putting this on. Darren, I wanted to ask you a question. In 2020, as part of the negotiations for the restrictive declaration on the Aurora and Gottlieb owned property on Gansevoort Street, one of the exchanges for that, instead of using space, was $1 million donation that we had negotiated with Speaker Johnson's office then, as along with the community board. Can you tell us a little bit about how that money has been spent and what it went to, and you know, a little bit more about the benefits that came from that? Because I don't think I've heard any information about it, and I'm not sure that many people are even aware that was negotiated as part of the performance space, the free rehearsal space.
Yeah, it was interesting because thanks for that, Carter. You know, to put that timing a little bit more in light, Carter, I landed at Greenwich House in January of 2020, and the call or email I got about that was I thought it was I thought someone was pulling my leg originally, but it was it was terrific that that Corey and teams had thought about, and if you guys were part of that, thank you. Thinking about Greenwich House as a community resource and asset that might advantage from that development. To your point, we had actually looked at the space that they had set aside for the community use, because 30 years of a community space, I think, would have been amazing. If I recall correctly, it was kind of subterranean space. So it was like basement space that was not well lit, didn't have a lot of it just would not have been well suited for a lot of the needs and uses that we had. And obviously $1 million in cash for a nonprofit that doesn't have an endowment or any kind of steady state cash was a massive and amazingly useful windfall. The lion's share of that funds, if anyone has walked by Greenwich House in the last year, can largely be seen in the scaffolding around the building, as we've had to comply with local law 11 work. The other gift that I was given when I landed at Greenwich House was apparently the 10-year horizon of when our pointing work was due. Landed right in the middle of COVID. I think we got a little bit of a tolling because of COVID. But the reality, and the unfortunate reality, was that work that had originally been estimated for a few $100,000 spun up to is now actually well over $1 million. It's probably $1.6 million project. And again, just a huge challenge to a nonprofit that whose space is probably both you know, one of our most invaluable assets, but it's an asset that comes with responsibilities. And if you don't have a funding source to fund regular maintenance and upkeep, and then work like Local 11 comes to really bite you. So the reality is, I wish the reality is I wish I could point to something far more prolific and far more you know, kind of directly you know, kind of tangible on it. But I will say that I think the repair and the work that Local 11 requires on a 100+ building, and the preservation it's allowing us to hopefully preserve that for generations to come is still it's a needed and a worthwhile investment.
Thanks, Darren. I also wanted to point out, you know, Eric, who's now our city council member, was very involved in negotiating that. But you know, I want to point out that it's really important that you're here, because most private buildings and ownership of building, people find better uses than social service uses, because they, you know, generate more income from those, which is a big challenge for us. And, you know, coming into COVID, we thought that there might be some more changes in commercial property values that would allow for other services to locate here. But unfortunately, that drop has not occurred. And
so Carter, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead, please.
Sure. I'm just saying it's really important that you guys are here. And so even though that is used for local law work, it allows you to continue to be here. That's really important. And I don't think people realize the challenge of just space and the cost. And, you know, most stuff is privately owned, and people will rent it to other uses, and not to our social services use, because that's a big struggle for us. So I just applaud you guys for staying and using that and being in our community and remaining a part of our community. Can't be understated.
No, I appreciate that, and also just say I think you were sort of deeply involved in all this. Might have heard a couple of the meetings that we brought this up, but talking about what Laura laid out as that expansion of this Center for Resiliency and Wellness down at our Mercer Street site, the much bigger, more ambitious vision we had, and I loved everything about this. And to your exact point, we just couldn't get it to land, was the Sushi Samba site, literally across the street from 27 Barra, that sat vacant now for, I don't know, 8-9 years or so. We went just round after round with the landlord there, trying to get development rights to turn that into a community resiliency and wellness center, and having that a state-of-the-art place for families and adults and others that needed any number of different kind of social and wellness supports. And we had architecture, we had maps, we had like all sorts of thinking and planning done on it, and we just could not get that landlord to get off a number that was just utterly absurd. And so yeah, your point is spot on. Yeah.
I was just going to add that was one of 4 buildings that we, over the last 2 years, we knew the center needs help. Some of them we just couldn't get the landlord to land at a reasonable amount. Some of them were great up until they said, so let us see what kind of services you're providing. And then they were like, not great for our building. So totally get what you're saying. It's been a real struggle. Yeah, what, 2 years, almost 2 years.
Yeah. And by the way, Carter, it's funny that you go back to the Gansevoort money, because when we originally pitched that, the Gansevoort money was going to be my down payment on that. That was going to be the catalyst that Greenwich House, but for Gansevoort, would not have had the cash to make a play like that. And so to me, when those pieces were starting to come together, it just looked so elegant, and just couldn't get them to move off the dime. It was really frustrating.
Yeah, I think that a lot of us share that frustration in not seeing some movement, particularly, it's 6 years of vacancy and just no use. And the fact that we couldn't have a long-term community partner there. And, certainly, as everybody knows, we have a growth in the other uses, but this is really what we're lacking. And I think it's important for you guys to share that with others, because we see a significant pressure on other communities, and we hear that from other community boards, especially. But because these are private spaces, they cost too much, and the diversification of having resources available everywhere, they're private spaces, and people need to be aware of this, and perhaps some other creative ways to entice property owners to make those deals with you guys and others.
Yeah,
and
what I'll say to you and the community board, shortly before I left City Hall, one of the more I did a stint in city government before I landed here. One of the cooler projects that I was just getting started on, and I wasn't the only one by any stretch to be thinking about this, but it was trying to work with local landlords and their banks and finance arms to figure out how we could at least do something with the retail vacancies towards art and community uses, and trying to crack that nut, which I think circles a little bit also around what you're getting at, Carter. But all of that is for sure huge community and civic issues that I gotta say, I think there are reasonable solutions out there for it. And sorry, Laura had to break off, guys, but
I just see that Keen has a question.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to add that this is exactly what the community board should be doing, is to try to get landlord. We could advocate as the community board to this kind of stuff. So you need to let us know exactly, right? Right, Susanna?
Sure.
Yeah, I think 100% Keen. I think the challenge, though, that at the heart of the point that Carter's getting at is, at the end of the day, when you're talking about private interests, there are very few buttons and levers that government has to move. It's probably one of the most foundational points in our democracy, that kind of the right that someone has to some degree do what they want or not do what they want with their property. And we certainly, it does become though an urban plague when you have folks sitting on vacant lands or leaving vacant spaces open.
But you know, we have some moral suasion that maybe you don't. Right? I think we do. I know we do.
Yes, perhaps we do. We certainly do with electeds. I don't know about private property owners, but well, this has been great. Thank you guys very much. Thank you for always being willing to come and talk to us. And thanks, please extend thanks to Laura for coming. If no one has anything else, I think we'll wrap this up. And I guess we'll just have a moment of business session while we say goodbye. Bye, Darren. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the invite. Happy to join whatever you need,
Thanks.
whenever you want. Thanks, guys.
Our committee, we have the option to create a resolution if we want to. My tendency would be to say no, but I'd like to hear what everybody else thinks. Does anyone feel like we should be writing a resolution?
Could we be advocating for the transportation money pilot grant, or it sounds like the door might be closed on that?
Yeah, I kind of feel like, I don't know. I sort of feel like that goes into our budget request, but maybe it's sort of. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's definitely goes into our budget request. It's not really, they didn't really have a resolution that.
Yeah, I mean, I always hate to write resolutions asking for funding because budgets are a zero-sum game. So I feel comfortable always saying like we support it. Like if you're thinking about it, know that we support it. But I kind of feel like we could do that just as well in our priority budget requests, but if you guys agree. All right, in that case, we'll just do a report for all of the people in our community who were not able to attend this meeting. And I'll thank you guys for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, have a lovely weekend.
much.
And thanks
Good
again
night.
for being here. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.